You're listening to the Appraisal Buzzcast with your host, Hal Humphreys.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's Appraisal Buzzcast. I'm Jim Morrison. Our host is Hal Humphreys. Let me bring him in. Hey, Hal.
How you doing there, Jim?
I'm doing great. Well, we're really excited about our episode today. We are announcing another Buzzy Award winner. We're talking to the Instructor of the Year, Peter Christensen. Hey, Peter, congratulations.
Thanks, Jim. It's awesome. Super happy to get the award.
It is very awesome. Peter, welcome back to the show. You've been on before. I think most of the folks know who you are, obviously, because you were voted Instructor of the Year for the Buzzy Awards this year. I'm personally absolutely tickled about that, and it's an award that you absolutely deserve. I've been in your classes. I've taken your classes. You do a really good job of it, and I'm tickled that the folks that voted on this selected you for Instructor of the Year. Let me ask you a real quick question, Peter. What is your favorite thing about teaching?
My favorite thing about teaching is that because I'm not an appraiser, I get to learn about what appraisers are doing, about what my potential clients are doing. So it's really, teaching has been a great benefit to me because not being an appraiser, like I'm continuously learning like the vocabulary of appraisers or just how appraisers see different legal issues going on. So it's a great benefit to me as an attorney to get that kind of those takeaways for myself from the classes that I'm teaching.
You know, I never really thought about it in terms of like that, but the fact that you're an attorney, I think most of the appraisers that take your classes really love the fact that you're an attorney and that you're not necessarily directly in the appraisal space. You bring an outside perspective, but I hadn't thought about the fact that, you know, you gain a lot out of being in front of appraisers and learning the things that they're worried about, the things they're thinking about. I think that's a really interesting observation.
Yep. And the related benefit is that like I spend so much time talking about appraisal issues with appraisers who are going to correct me if I get like some terminology wrong or something. And that, you know, I probably spend like 12 hours a month or so giving classes of one sort or another, maybe more. And that helps me when I'm like making arguments to might be a regulator or to another lawyer. And I speak the vocabulary, I use the language right. So it really helps me outside of even representing individual appraisers.
Yeah, I love it. Well, let's do this. I want to hear from one of our sponsors real quick, and we'll be right back.
ACI introduces ACI Sky Workbench, a cutting-edge cloud-based platform designed to streamline UR/AR appraisal report generation like never before. With seamless workflow integration, automated data management, and built-in compliance, Workbench empowers appraisers to work smarter, faster, and with greater accuracy. Visit aciweb.com for more info.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to the Appraisal Buzz. I'm Hal Humphreys, and I'm joined today by Peter Christensen, Instructor of the Year, according to the Buzzy Awards. Peter, again, congratulations on the award. I'm absolutely tickled about this. Let me ask you a quick question. You've been doing a lot of teaching over the past several years. What does 2025 have in store for you and your students? What classes are you going to be teaching this year coming up?
Well, I just sent to Ben the materials for a new class. I've given it here and there live, but never on Zoom. So we're going to be doing it on Zoom, and it's called Staying Out of the Courtroom Unless You're Being Paid to Be There. And it's so, I mean, like, how would you be paid to be in a courtroom? If you're an expert witness or if you're doing some kind of litigation work, tax work, something like that. So the class is about non-lending work. And the idea is to actually, you know, teach appraisers about maybe ways they can get involved into expert witness work where they can start off with, but then also give some real tools for appraisers on that. Like, where do you find a good engagement agreement for your non-lending work? And I've got resources for that. So that's going to be like a quick class, just you jump in and jump out because it's just going to be 2 hours. So something
wow.
you can do like sometime late in the afternoon, or maybe we'll do an evening class or something.
Okay, that sounds like fun. And I know for a fact we've got the 7 hour bias training is going to be coming out in the next little bit.
Yes, the 7 hour class required by the AQB, maybe not quite as fun as the other class. So maybe that's why I didn't bring it up. But the 7 hour valuation bias class is something that every appraiser in America is going to have to complete um, for any license they renew on or after January 1 of 2026. So that means that some appraisers are going to be taking that class maybe next year.
Yeah. And let's do this. I'm going to take a real quick break and we'll hear from one of our sponsors and we'll be right back.
Solidify is one of the nation's most trusted valuation and title partners. With their proprietary technology and extensive network, Solidify delivers industry-leading quality, transparency, efficiency, and scale to the largest mortgage lenders in the U.S. Their marketplace of independent, qualified field professionals makes the homeownership experience extraordinary every time. Visit solidify.com for more information and stay connected with their latest news on LinkedIn.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to the Appraisal Buzzcast. I'm Hal Humphreys, your host. I've got Peter Christensen on the line with me today. We've been talking about the fact that he was just voted Instructor of the Year for the Buzzy Awards. Terribly excited about that. In the last section, we talked about some classes coming up with Peter Christensen that you can take as an appraiser for continuing education and just for your own edification if you want to. And Peter, I'm really excited about the how to stay out of court unless you're being paid, which vaguely reminds me of a book I saw the other day that is titled Ducks and How to Make Them Pay, which sounds vaguely threatening to me, but I love the fact that you're teaching a 2 hour class that can help appraisers maybe get into a line of work that they haven't considered before. And the world of courtroom work is a little bit different than everything else. And folks out there listening, if you want to learn about litigation work, what better source than an attorney to help you understand it? Peter, let's talk about some things that appraisers can expect to see in the coming months. What are some current cases going on that are going to possibly affect the way appraisers do their jobs?
Well, there is one that I haven't seen appraisers yet talking about, and it does for residential appraisers. It really hits on an issue I think that is close to home to many residential appraisers. And so there is a case out there. This concerns the separation of the fees charged by an AMC. You know, we've got the appraiser fee, and then we've got whatever the AMC charges on top of that. And appraisers don't like the idea that the two fees get lumped together and that the consumer sees on their closing statement, for example, just a single appraisal fee, but it includes the AMC fee. And so that's been a topic of public argument, concern, discussion for quite a while. And there is actually a case out there filed by a consumer, a borrower, where the borrower alleges that they were misled in some way. It's a consumer kind of deception case. They allege that they were misled by a lender and an AMC in the way that that fee was disclosed to them. The consumer saying, it should have been separated out for me, or I should not have been charged for the AMC part of the fee. So there is now a case in a state court in California making that allegation. So I think that's going to be something that appraisers and appraiser groups are going to follow in 2025. Like, our lenders seeing that case, are they going to start requiring the separation? Maybe. It's not something that like the federal government requires, but this is more a case of, is it deceiving? So this is a case that will be interesting to watch. It was just filed last month. Okay,
well, that's interesting. Anything else out there kind of ongoing that could potentially impact the industry?
Well, I mean, I think this is a positive. This next thing is kind of a positive point, and that is that one thing I don't think that is going to be impacting appraisers quite as much as feared is there haven't been as many of these discrimination cases filed as appraisers might fear, or as we might all have thought would happen maybe 2, 3 years ago. Yeah, we're going to be taking the 7-hour valuation bias class, but are appraisers like getting sued in bulk? I mean, sued in court over discrimination? That's not happening. It's really not. Very few cases, only fewer than 20 cases in court. I'm talking about. There are a lot of HUD complaints, and those are someday going to wind their way through HUD, but very few actual court complaints. So I think that's good news. And so what we'll see in 2025 is maybe something that was not. We're going to see feared dreams not come true, or nightmares not come true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is good news. I know there's been an awful lot of talk over the past few years about discrimination and bias and lawsuits pending and lawsuits filed. And like you said, there just doesn't seem to be as much traction behind that as was feared in the beginning. And hopefully for appraisers' sakes, look, I get feedback on a fairly regular basis from appraisers. Why are they making us take these bias classes? And I know I'm going a little bit off script here, Peter, but I'm not offended about or by the notion of taking an occasional bias class, because and tell me if I'm thinking about this in the right way. If you remind yourself that you do in fact have biases, it allows you to avoid those things more so than if you don't acknowledge that you have them.
Yeah. And in those classes that I give, we do a 3-hour class right now with appraiser e-learning. In those classes, though, we spend quite a bit of time talking about implicit bias and the way that it affects people in general, not appraisers specifically, but people in general. And there are a lot of interesting studies on that. And if I see bias creeping in to appraisal work product, if I think like, okay, I've got a case here and maybe there's something different in the appraisal, what I personally think I see sometimes is implicit bias has affected what the appraiser did. I have yet to have a client where I would think that they did something intentionally wrongful, intentionally discriminatory. I haven't seen that myself yet.
Right. Very good. Peter, thank you for taking the time to be here today. I'm always grateful to spend some time with you. And again, congratulations on being voted Instructor of the Year for the Buzzy Awards. I'm very excited about that.
Thanks. I'm lauding that over my children. And trying to get recognition from my children for that achievement.
I love
but
it.
so far they are not
They just
telling
don't
their
care.
friends.
They just don't care.
Yeah.
So, Peter, Jim Morrison continually tries to trip me up personally. I think he's trying to make me look like a fool somehow. But with these anonymous appraiser questions that he gets people send in a question and we're supposed to answer it with some sense of authority. Morrison, do we have an anonymous appraiser question
We
today?
do, and this one, I don't know, Peter, you're not an appraiser, so this one may be a little out of your ballpark, but we could talk about it anyways. So it says, I have a request for a 4-unit. I called to make appointment, and the owner said the building was taken down the studs, remodeled, and he added a permitted ADU. That's an accessory dwelling unit. I was told by a friend who is also an SRA that all rentable units must be counted and that property is now a 5-unit. How should I handle this?
Ooh.
Well, Hal, do you think the concern here is the license level concerns? That's where the appraiser is going with it? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. My take on it is, if your license allows you to appraise a 4-unit property and it all of a sudden has another unit, which makes it 5 units, I would suggest for the appraiser, be very careful about that, especially if that ADU is a 5th rentable unit. That can be problematic. And quite honestly, even if it's not separately rentable, but it's another defined unit, I would be real careful about it, just personally.
I would be too, because the thing about appraising beyond your license is that if you somehow get a legal claim over that, like a lender makes a repurchase demand and now someone's making a legal claim against the appraiser's E&O company might even deny coverage for that because they'd say, well, we don't cover you when you're doing unlicensed activity and appraising beyond your license. I've seen it in other situations be viewed by an E&O carrier as being beyond activity without the proper license, and they don't insure appraisers for that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really good argument for if you're certified residential and you've been doing it for a while, maybe consider getting a certified general ticket. You do that, you become competent in appraising 5 or more units, and there's absolutely no worry. But if you're certified residential or licensed residential and you've got a 4-unit property that is somehow turned into a 5-unit property, from my perspective as an appraiser, I'm looking at the license level and saying, my license allows me to appraise up to 4 units, and this is now 5 units. I'm worried about that. And Peter, your thing is, if you do it and somebody files a lawsuit, your E&O insurance might not cover it?
Yeah, yeah. But I'd go with your suggestion. Hey, it's a good idea for appraisers to work their way towards that CG, because, okay, we were talking about non-lending work earlier. So say 98% of your work's still going to be residential. But if you've got that CG credential for expert witness work, even coming in and testifying in a divorce, hey, it gives you some added credibility, I think.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. Well, Peter, thank you again for being here. Jim Morrison, do we have anything else we need to cover today?
No, thank you so much, Peter. Peter, we're looking forward to handing you the award in person at Valuation Expo this year. We're going to be doing that on August 12th back at Caesar's Palace. So we're really looking forward to having a big party for our Buzzy Award winners.
All right. I'm putting it on my calendar, so I'll be there.
And
Awesome.
those of you listening, put it on your calendar. Jim, say the dates one more time.
It's going to be August 11th through the 13th.
August 11th through 13th, Caesar's Palace, Las Vegas, Nevada. Valuation Expo, join us. If we have nothing else, for Jim Morrison and Peter Christensen, I'm Hal Humphreys, and that is your Appraisal Buzzcast.